Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the
Welcome back, everybody. We don't have to tell you that things have been crazy, and we are jumping right into it. This is a great time of year. We got March Madness going on in the background. NFL free agency just like blowing up, as it does every year, but it seems like each year gets crazier and crazier, and the names get bigger and bigger that switch from teams that get big contracts. The money is getting out of control. And so we had to get big names. We had to get out of control. And as usual, we bring in the Adam Hulse to talk free agency with us. Adam, welcome back to the show.
Well, it's almost funny that they call it an off season now, right? Because like what's been off about it? You know, like it's just been pretty much all action, especially these last few days, kind of right in the prime time of it. And I'm ready to get into it.
It's been crazy. We got to review some of the big trades. We're getting into the NFC South today. We can't sit here and talk about NFL free agency without bringing up the fact the Eagles got Cox back. They say now yesterday Slay was leaving, and today Slay may be coming back. He may not be leaving after all. In Dallas, we know Zeke is out. Gilmore is in. I'm sure you're probably happy about that. Washington brings in Jacoby Brissett, and we all put up our hands and go, why? And the Giants bring in Darren Waller, who was a big name after we've already talked about this after last season's performance. We'll see how that goes. That's kind of a push right now. Over in the AFC East, Sam Darnold and Hargrave go to the Niners. Hargrave, a great pickup. Denver's doing all kinds of work, dumping some stuff. They bring in McClinchy. They bring in Pirine. Las Vegas grabs Garoppolo and Jacoby Myers. I did not see Jacoby Myers go in there.
Yeah.
Orlando Brown finally gets signed yesterday to the Bengals. Juju's in New England now, and so is James Robinson. Matt Ryan needs to find a job. White goes to Miami. I mean, it's pandemonium. Players are going everywhere, and we're going to concentrate on the NFC South, but there's so much to talk about. Oh, and Rodgers is making grocery lists for teams he's not even on yet.
I mean, I'll start with my Cowboys just real quick. Love the Gilmore move, giving away a 5th-round pick. Minimal risk, high upside. You're not really giving anything away to get it. So that's a smart move by the Cowboys.
Steal. Jerry Jones should go to jail for that. Jerry Jones should be in prison for that deal right there.
Yep, that's robbery. My guy Zeke, your guy Zeke, I know you're a big Buckeyes fan. Look, I love everything Zeke did for the Cowboys. Obviously, these last couple of years, he isn't the same impact player that he once was. But look, Zeke gets a bad rap around the NFL, fans in particular, saying he's washed up and this and that. Me and you have even talked about this before. He's still a 1,000-yard rusher. He's still arguably the best blocking running back in the entire NFL. He does all the dirty work for the Cowboys, the goal line stuff, the between the tackle stuff. I got no negative words at all to say about Zeke, and I would have no problem if they still brought him back, but kind of cut him for contract reasons, sign him to something new that kind of is more team friendly. We'll see where Zeke goes, but love Zeke.
Zeke's had over 800 yards, where Pollard had like 1,200. So there's only 400-yard difference. Zeke didn't play the whole season, and they both have the same amount of touchdowns. Yes, he's not putting up the production he did prior to this season. I think from 2018 to 2020, he was like he's like the second most productive running back in the NFL. Overall. So, I mean, you know, there's still potential there. There's still room to work. And maybe this is something that he needed. Maybe he just needed this awakening, and he's going to go somewhere with a chip on his shoulder, and maybe old Zeke comes back. We'll see.
Apparently they talked about restructuring his contract for whatever reason. Those talks stalled. Who knows, who's at blame for that? Doesn't really matter at this point. If we get Zeke back, great. If we don't, that's great too. He's kind of served his purpose, but no negatives for me about Zeke. And then, of course, the Giants with getting Waller, they just needed offensive weapons, passing game in particular, whether it be receivers, tight ends, whatever. So if Waller was out there and they got him relatively pretty cheap too, smart move for them. The Eagles, it looked like they were going to be losing everybody. And we talked about that when we talked about NFC East. And now, Bradbury and Slay and Fletcher Cox and, a lot of these guys that we thought may be out the door, all of a sudden are signing back short-term team-friendly type stuff. But, the Eagles, they're doing good work over there if they could really keep majority of their pending free agents. And if they're still going to, sign Hurts to that contract this year, we'll see how that plays out.
And we talked about that. We talked about the Eagles making short-term contracts, guys coming back to go make one more run at it before they went chasing the real big money. being willing to do that. And I mean, look, they're not going to be, have to go shopping at Payless Shoes. Fletcher Cox signs a 1-year deal for $10 million. $10 million, I'll take it. I don't know. I'll take half that. I'll take a 10%er on that.
Yeah. Especially with a guy like Cox, he's made so much money already. He's been there and he's been one of the higher paid D tackles for a while. So
no, absolutely.
He's doing just fine.
James Bradbury goes for $38 million, 3 for 38. The Eagles are still having to spend money. We're going to talk about Miles Sanders leaving. Obviously, their backfield is just fine right now. It sucks to lose Sanders.
Yeah, I don't think losing Sanders is going to really be a big deal. I mean, even late last year, especially in the playoffs, Gainwell really kind of came on late. It's almost like they were saving him for later in the year and already had in mind that Sanders wasn't going to be here this year. So it seems like they kind of slow played Gainwell in that way.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the exchangeability at the running back position and how you can move people.
Especially with that O-line.
They keep Boston Scott around for a measly $2 million. They go out and pick up Rashad Penny, and they get Rashad Penny for 1.3. They're being smart about their money. They're picking up players that can contribute, that have niche roles, that have specific skill set. The Eagles are winning right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that most of these young head coaches and these young, team management type situations prefer the running back by committee, while the workhorse back is more of an old school, outdated, your old school coaches are more going for that. Where when you look at the teams with young head coaches, young general managers, young coordinators, they
Montgomery switches over within the division over there to Detroit. We're going to talk about Jamal Williams, which a lot of people might not even know happened.
Your guy.
Loving Jamal Williams. There's another team that general manager should be in jail. That was a steal as well. But we're going to get into that as we talk about the NFC South today. I'd like to start with the least amount of activity, not necessarily the most significant, the least amount of activity. So I want to start with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay notable pickups. Course is Baker Mayfield. They keep Jamal Dean, David, and Anthony Nelson in the defensive backfield there. They lose Shaq Mason to Houston. Those are really the big deals. There's still, a couple contracts that need to get worked out. I would say Tampa is clearly not done. I hope Tampa's not done with a Baker Mayfield signing. Technically, I guess they got people everywhere they need them.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm the Bucs, that Baker Mayfield signing, to me, that's more of a stopgaps type signing look, Baker has some upside. I don't believe in Baker Mayfield, but he's still young enough and he's done a couple things in his career that gives him some upside that, maybe he plays unbelievable this year with, that good offense around him with those two great receivers if they are both going to stay in Tampa Bay. And maybe he revives his career there, but they're not committing a whole lot of money or making a big investment in Baker. I still think that they're probably looking towards the draft to go get a quarterback. Baker Mayfield's a just fine short-term.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the 19th pick, so if they're going to get somebody, one of these top guys at quarterback, they're going to have to trade up. I mean, there's nothing saying they wouldn't do that. There's nothing saying they couldn't do that. I'm sure there's teams willing to make that kind of trade. And as usual, we'll wait to see how the draft plays out. Always excited about it.
Yeah, and I mean, they have some assets and they have some veterans. And, there's been rumors out there that Mike Evans could be on the move this year and stuff like that. So if they want to move up, they probably can do it, with one of those teams ahead of them that isn't in the market for a quarterback. Or you just don't know it. If there's someone later first round or somewhere in the middle rounds that they have their eye on and and in that case, that could be Baker Mayfield plays this year. They draft a guy, groom him up and see what he is next year. And if Baker's really a disaster and the Bucs have a down year, they'll have a higher draft pick next year to reassess quarterback again.
A very good possibility that the coaching staff is just kind of to the next season, we'll get through this season, we'll play, and we'll see what's there at the end of it.
Not too dissimilar from what the Panthers did last year. They took Matt Corral a little bit later in the draft. They still had Darnold. They still had Baker Mayfield. They didn't know what Corral was going to be, but they kind of liked him, his upside mid-round pick. They're not expecting him to come in and play right away. Sam Howell for the Commanders, kind of the same type of situation.
And there's a lot to talk about with the Panthers, and we're definitely going to get into that. Before we do, I want to touch on one thing. Even though it's more AFC East question, it still ties to Tampa, and I just want to get your feelings on all the rumors about Brady coming back. I'm not buying in, but a lot of people are.
No, I'm not buying it at all. I think Brady's done. I think he's moved on. I think that's more a speculative media type of rumor. I mean, I haven't heard anything from Brady that makes me think that, he might be coming back. He's doing his media stuff. He's got his other stuff going on. He's already committed next year to start with Fox.
I think Dolphins have gotten in enough trouble over Brady, and they just need to leave it alone. Now they don't have a first-round pick.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That moves us on to Atlanta. Atlanta brings in Heineke. Okay, that's fine. I mean, whatever. You're still looking for a starter, I think. But they get a huge signing with Jason Bates III on defense. I mean, that was pretty big. He was pretty high on a lot of people's draft boards. So for them to spend that money to get him is pretty significant. 4 for $64 is what they get him for. They grab a free agent tight end. They grab Ellis at linebacker. What they really did is re-sign a lot of their key players. I think the number was like $233 million just the first couple days of free agency. So they're trying to lock down their team. I haven't seen anything that really changes who they are, though.
No, and you know what? It looks like right now the Falcons, I think what I've learned about them in the last 2 years is that they're going to be patient with this rebuild and try to do it the right way. Looks like they're going, selling out for the rebuild, which I believe is the best way to do it. I don't like when teams try to halfway compete through a rebuild. Just commit to it. Don't sign veterans that clog up salary cap that you don't really need for your future, because the Falcons don't really have a lot going for them right now. Keep adding the young pieces, stockpile draft picks, get favorable contracts with guys that could have some upside this year that you could trade later on, maybe for more draft picks. So, I'm okay with the Falcons doing it that way. With the Heineke signing, I think that's a great signing for them, just because Heineke's shown throughout his entire career that he's okay with being a backup quarterback with a chance to play at times, and he's never going to cause a big stink about it. It was like that in Washington. You know what I mean? And I think what the Falcons' plan at quarterback is, I think Desmond Ridder is going to start the year as the starter, give him a legitimate shot to see what they have there. Heineke will help teach him a little bit like he's done in the past. If Ritter's an absolute disaster, they have a legitimate backup they can turn to, and they can just pull the plug on Ridder. And I don't think this is going to be a very good year for the Falcons at all, especially because of that quarterback situation we're talking about and their general lack of talent. And they could be in the market next year for being at the top of the draft, taking one of those quarterbacks. I know right now everybody's talking about Caleb Williams. He's kind of the guy next year. They might be in that pool.
First of all, I love Taylor Heineke. I've said it before. I will keep on saying it. I love the kid. He's just happy to be here. He's just happy to suit up every week. He's a 100% team player. He's not the worst backup in the league. He's a guy that you can depend on to call up when you need to. And you make a great point about, being there to help support and help teach and help mold. I do think it's a good move, but I agree with you. I don't think it's a move to change how this season's going to go. I think they are kind of setting things up for the future, re-signing some of their key players. I think that's going to go towards the future, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, I think they know that they can't compete this year. So, look to the future, keep building slowly, do it the right way, and maybe in a couple years we'll be talking about the Falcons.
That's how the NFL works nowadays. And another team that recognized that, but they are in a win now mode this free agent season, is the New Orleans Saints. They bring in, obviously, the big signing being Derek Carr. A lot of people under the radar may not have realized that they also signed Jamal Williams, and they stole him. They stole him 3 years for $12 million, 8 guaranteed. I mean, they stole the kid. They also get Kalen Sanders at defensive tackle from Kansas City. I mean, they haven't made a lot of moves, but they have made key moves that legitimately make their team better. Restructuring Thomas, so smart to bring in Williams, especially for this deal of a price with the Kamara situation. I mean, they are making legit moves to actually be a contender in their division this year.
For sure. I mean, the Jamal Williams thing, we don't know if Kamara is going to get a suspension. If he does get a suspension, how long is that going to be? This situation, it's going to kind of play itself out over the offseason. Even if they do get Kamara for the entire season, I mean, Jamal Williams is a great number 2. The Saints have kind of used that strategy in the past with a guy like Mark Ingram, and Jamal Williams is way better than Mark Ingram, especially at this point in their career.
Absolutely.
And Jamal Williams, he's going to do that dirty work that Kamara doesn't have to do anymore now. He can do the goal line stuff. He can do the short yardage stuff. He can do the between the tackle stuff And what some people forget about Jamal Williams, too, is he's also an excellent pass catcher. So just because Jamal Williams is in the game for Kamara, they can still use that same playbook, because we know that the Saints throw it to their running back more than any other team in the league.
The guy led the league in touchdowns last year. If people didn't remember that or were not aware of it.
He ran away with it, too. He won it by 4.
Absolutely. Wasn't even close.
Yep.
You talk about a team player, and talk about a guy who's just happy to be here. Jamal Williams is sitting in that category right at the top. I love that kid. I've watched the YouTube videos, and I am definitely on the Jamal Williams train, not just because of his skill, but just because of the person he presents himself to be. Again, that teammate mentality, that excitement to just play the game. I think that's missing from so many players. I just love to see that kid play, and I love to see this happen for him, and I wish him nothing but luck.
I agree with you, and I mean, just the fact that he signed with the Saints is another testament to his character. He doesn't need to be the star. He doesn't need the spotlight. After that great season he had last year, he very easily could have pushed for, no, I want to go to a place where I am the lead running back, I'm the guy, and I need to be paid that way because I had a great year last year. He said, no, I'll go to the Saints. I'll play behind Kamara. That's cool.
The guy led the league in touchdowns and takes his contract for $12 million over 3 years, $4 million a year for last year's touchdown.
He wants to be happy and he wants to win. You know, he's not overly concerned about money. He seems like happy, like, look, $12 million, that's beautiful to me. And I want to be in a place where I'm happy and I have a chance to compete, and I like the guys around me, and you got to respect that about him.
I 100% respect that about him. Awesome to see. Miles Sanders, as we move into the Panthers, and the Panthers are really the team to talk about as far as making moves. Miles Sanders gets 4 at 25. I would take Jamal Williams over Miles Sanders any day, and Miles Sanders gets 4 for 25. Not that Sanders is bad. I think it's a good move, especially if they manage to keep a hold of Foreman. I think it's something that can definitely pay off. The Panthers get Sanders. Speaking of New Orleans, they go ahead and pick Dalton up for now to fill in there. And you mentioned Coral. I think Coral probably is the game plan, but Dalton's another great guy to fill that mentor role and to come in and play when you need him to. Deshaun Williams, the defensive tackle. Hayden Hurst comes in, and they managed to get Von Bell away from Cincinnati to help out on defense. Oh, and by the way, if you didn't know, Carolina also managed to get the number 1 pick in the NFL. Although I'm a little confused by grabbing the number 1 pick. Obviously get a quarterback, and yet you deal off your number 1 receiver in the process.
Yeah, I mean, giving away DJ Moore was a little bit surprising to me also. When it comes to Andy Dalton, I mean, pretty much everything I said about Heineke, you could also kind of say about Dalton at this point in his career. He did it, with the Cowboys. He did it with the Bears, and the difference between Dalton and Heineke is Dalton actually has a career before this where he was a annual playoff contender with the Bengals and actually has kind of a pretty good resume to go off of. So props to Dalton, kind of understanding who he is at this point in his career. Be a veteran mentor, be a stopgap. You'll get a little bit of opportunity to play here and there, but you're really looking to help the young guys. So good for him. Now, with this first pick overall, I think we both agree that they are going quarterback. They wouldn't have made that trade up, and they wouldn't have gave away everything they did if they weren't going to take a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick. That pretty much tells me that, they've seen all they need to see with Matt Corral, and he's not going to be the guy for them or for anybody at this point. With his, questionable skill set, with his injury history, we can kind of that name will probably never get brought up again from here on out. So it's going to be Dalton and either Stroud or Young.
I don't remember a time when it's been so polarized about who the number 1 pick is going to be, because you're either in camp Young for the skill set. You don't see a lot of argument about who has the best skill set in this year's draft, and that's Young to transfer over to the NFL. The questions, of course, are his size, and I agree with those questions. It's great that he has the skill set, but he's going to be playing against the big guys now, the real guys, and they're all big, and they're all as good as he's ever faced. So people look to Stroud. Stroud is the second best guy, but has the physical attributes that you're looking for. And then, of course, you've got the runner-up, essentially, which, shockingly could go first, but I don't think that'll happen. I do think it is Young or Stroud. It's just a matter if you want to gamble on how long Young can survive in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, too, on a previous episode. We both agree that we would rather have Stroud than Bryce Young because of the size thing that you just brought up. And, I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with Stroud's resume at all. Him and Bryce Young's resume are both excellent. And I mentioned I just kind of like Stroud's attitude in the interviews I've seen him do and the press conference type stuff that I've seen him do. I do like Stroud a lot. Now, of course, there's the Anthony Richardson. Like you said, there's some of those, next guys and whatnot. Richardson with the unbelievable combine probably helped his stock more than anybody at the combine. But I highly doubt the Panthers traded up to number 1 to go get Anthony Richardson. I just don't think that is what they did.
No, he's going to get taken by a team that willing to teach and to mold, not going to get thrown in to a starter position. And if he does, they're going to ruin him for life because he is someone that still needs to learn how to play the game in the NFL. I mean, he's got the athleticism, he's got the potential skill set, he's got everything he needs. But like you said, he built the most stock for himself at the combine. All I hear is what a moldable player he's going to be and how excited people are to watch him learn and grow over the next year before he jumps into a starting role. And I think that is the spot for him.
Right. And, like Anthony Richardson, I mean, the unbelievable combine, but, let's not, get it twisted either. I mean, look at his numbers as an actual quarterback in college. There's really nothing there that jumps off the page. Sure, he was a pretty good runner, but, they're talking about all the athletic measurements at the combine. Did you watch him throw, though? When he threw, it really wasn't all that impressive when he was standing in the pocket and throwing. So, again, he's going to be a developmental type project, like you said. Similar kind of to Malik Willis last year. I mean, Anthony Richardson is going to be higher rated than Malik Willis. I don't think Anthony Richardson is lasting till the 3rd round like Malik Willis, but kind of similar like that. Right. A super superior athlete with questionable of, is he an NFL quarterback though? He sure looks like an NFL player, but is he a quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, is this going to be another situation where maybe he should go play tight end or play in another position? And if he's willing to do that, unlike some other players in the past, but if he's willing to do that, then he potentially could have an even better career. And to kind of bring it back around to the Saints kind of have a player like that, and he does pretty well for himself.
Yeah, I don't think Anthony Richardson is going to do that. I mean, I don't know a lot about him as a person. I don't think really any of us do, but I can't really see him doing that. He's going to want to be a quarterback, or at least try to be a quarterback. And if that fails, maybe like a, Troy Smith situation where he converts to wide receiver or something like that. But we were saying with the Andy Dalton thing with the Panthers, and he can play for a little while. Who knows? Maybe that is their strategy. We can take Anthony Richardson, number 1 overall. He can kind of play that little role like Malik Willis did last year, bring him in on gadget plays and running plays and wildcat type stuff, and have him kind of like Trey Lance did in the very beginning too. Dalton will start for now, and we can kind of groom Richardson. Now, to me, Richardson doesn't scream Frank Reich quarterback to me. Frank Reich's a little bit more traditional, and he wants like the big body, strong arm, pocket passer type of quarterback. I mean, look at the history of the guys that he's worked with. So I don't see Richardson being the guy on Frank Reich's radar. Also, me saying that makes me also think that Frank Reich is going to go more CJ Stroud because of his build, because of more of his pocket presence. And you mentioned something interesting before with the Stroud Young, this close at the top 2. And I mean, the last time I remember it being this close with the 2 quarterbacks may have been back when it was Mariota and Jameis Winston.
Yeah, that's actually a good comparison. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's the only one I can really think of off the top of my head that was also with the Stroud versus Young with the difference in their style, the difference in their size, Jameis Winston being more the CJ Stroud and Mariota being more the Bryce Young in a sense.
I love CJ Stroud, and it's not just because he's a Buckeye. I think he does have a skill set, but we have said on shows, future shows, and me being the Ohio State guy, I 100% bring light to the fact that there has never been a successful Ohio State quarterback in the NFL. And I'm not counting Justin Fields because he's not playing quarterback. He's playing RB3, who happens to throw the ball.
And he had, one good year running the ball. We can't call Justin Fields successful yet. We got to see him do it a few times first.
No, and the Bears have all this money, and it's going to be interesting to see what the Bears do. They've already said they're committed to Fields. There you go. That's what they're going to do, but they have all the money to bring in whoever they want. I thought they were going to bring in Schuster. I thought they might go after Myers. They have not done that. They get Moore, and Moore's a great addition. I actually think
I mean,
Moore
Moore's better
matches
than
up
both
with
of them.
Justin Fields. I think Moore matches up with Justin Fields' skill set tremendously. I think that's a fantastic pickup for the Bears. That's a win-win. Let's not get it twisted. It's going to be Young or Stroud. There's not going to be any surprise there. It's just a matter of which one they're going to take. And as far as Richardson, I think Richardson slides, second, third round. He could get taken up in the first round just because of all the hype around him, but I think that a good GM is going to recognize the exact same things that we recognize not as GMs, that there's a lot of work to be done there, and he's probably not worth a first-round pick.
I'm still thinking he's going to go high into the Colts because that seems like a Jim Irsay type of move, always trying to make a splash, Jim Irsay. And also, with like the young leadership now in Indianapolis, this is like such a new age prototype type of quarterback, which a lot of these younger coaching staffs are starting to fall in love with.
I like the Colts for Levis personally. I do think that they petitioned and tried to get that first round, that number one pick, but being that they didn't get it, I don't think they're necessarily done. I think they still could move up, but I think that Levis would be the guy for them to take.
But isn't that a weird story, too, with the Panthers saying that, they may now trade the number one overall pick? There's no chance they're trading that number one overall pick. The amount that they gave up to get that number one pick, again, I think this is just a weird media-created rumor that, like, the Panthers may now flip the number one overall pick. Why? They would do it for a loss. They're not going to get back because what they gave away to get it.
No, because Carr's already signed. Aaron Rodgers is already going to be signed. Like, we already know where Rodgers is going. Garoppolo's already signed. So unless they've got some kind of inside track on Lamar Jackson, and that's what it's going to cost to get him, that's really the only scenario I could see the Panthers making a deal with anybody to give up that first round pick. I mean, I don't think a Mike Ditka give up my entire draft move would be enough to get rid of the first round pick for the Panthers, just because they do need that QB. They don't really have a starter right now.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, too, they do it at a loss because they gave up a ton to get it. They're not going to get back what they gave away.
Exactly. Lamar Jackson, I brought him up. I know he's not in the division we're talking about because essentially he's not in any division right now. I mean, he still is signed with Baltimore. It's already come out that he gave up an astronomical amount of money last fall. There's been no progress in these negotiations. I can't see any situation where Lamar plays for Baltimore this year. And so it's just kind of like, where's he going to go?
This is such a complicated and weird situation, right? It really is unprecedented and so out there. And I don't have anything to compare it to, especially with him not having an agent and him and his mom like negotiating the terms. And we have no idea exactly how much he's looking for. A lot of people like myself, I'm assuming he wants a Deshaun Watson type of contract and he wants to exceed a Deshaun Watson type of contract. And the Ravens are pretty much telling him, look, we're not going to give you that, nor is anybody else. If you want to go try it for yourself, go ahead. That's what I think is going on right now. But I do also kind of agree with you too. Like, I would be pretty shocked at this point if he's their quarterback week 1 next year. I think either he's going to be somewhere else, or to me, he strikes me as the guy that if he's not somewhere else, he's just not going to play.
Yeah, because they gave Look, $36 million in today's environment is way under what he should be making.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, $36 million is an absurd amount of money to play football. You look at what other quarterbacks are making. You look at his skill set. You expect him to make more, so I understand that he expects to make more. But the guy turned down $200 million guaranteed, allegedly.
Mm-hmm.
And so if he's going to turn down that kind of money, obviously Baltimore is not going to pony up that kind of dough for a guy that spent a significant portion of last year injured and not playing. And when he did play, he didn't play fantastic. I understand Baltimore's position too, not to pay that money. And I agree with you. Here's $36 million. You're stuck with us unless you can find someone to beat it. And so far, like you said, nobody that we know of has come along to beat it to the point where Lamar will take it anyway.
What makes also this situation really unique, at least for me, is like, I agree with both sides. Like, I get it from Lamar Jackson's side that, you know, he probably should be making more money than Deshaun Watson, regardless of the fact that Deshaun Watson's contract is kind of an outlier and pretty insane. Like, the Browns kind of, you know, threw a wrench in the market with that. Now, even more so with Lamar Jackson.
And the Browns have already gone back and looked at that contract.
Exactly. They're already restructuring it. But, you know, with Lamar Jackson, he's already been injured a few times. His playing style suggests that he's not going to be a guy who's going to be be the same 5 years from now, let alone 10 or 15 years from now. He's a guy who will probably decline relatively quickly compared to other quarterbacks, more so like a running back because he plays like a running back. So I think he recognizes that now is the time for him to get paid because this might be the only time he's eligible for a mega contract. Some of your other superstar quarterbacks, they know they can get paid twice. They can sign 2 big contracts, get a big one now, whether it be 4 years or whatever. If they play well for those 4 years, they're going to get another big deal and maybe even bigger than the last one. That's not really Lamar Jackson's situation. But I also do agree with the Ravens' point of view, too, and I agree with both sides. If I'm the Ravens and Lamar says, look, I want $50 million a year fully guaranteed, I'm not giving that to him either. So it's very strange because I'm on both sides, like they're both right in what they're arguing.
If you're going to give that kind of money to a player, I need to see that you still got it. I know you had it, but I need to see that you still got it. You want that kind of money? Okay, you got to earn it. So I'm looking at incentives. I'm looking at the type of deal where you get X number of yards, then you get a big bonus, and you get X number of touchdowns, you get this big bonus, and maybe all that adds up to your $100 million, but you got to earn it and show us that you still got it. And if you think someone else will pay you right now the money that you want, then by all means, because we don't think that they will. We've called around, we've talked to certain clubs, and the general feeling out there is the same as we feel. You can get paid. We're willing to pay you. You can let someone else pay you, but nobody's going to pay you the amount of money that you're looking for.
Right.
Not right
and
now.
If I had to, take a shot in the dark at what he's looking for, I mean, Watson got, 5 years, 230 fully guaranteed. Now, it would not surprise me if Lamar's saying, I want 5 years, 240 fully guaranteed, or 250. And I think he's probably using that Watson contract and also using the fact that, hey, look, nobody has my skill set. I'm your best quarterback and your best running back, so I should be making more.
And Baltimore saying, yes, you were, but last year you were not. We need to see that that's the player you still are. And look, let's look around the league at teams that would be interested in really putting up some big money because they really need the quarterback to come in there. Carolina's already made their move to get their quarterback, so I kind of think they're out. Indianapolis really needs a quarterback, but I don't think they're going to spend that kind of money. They need too many other things. They're still building as well. I think they would spend money, but I don't think they'd spend that kind of money. So where else is Lamar Jackson services needed for that price tag? You would say the Jets, but they have already made their deal.
Right. Like if Aaron Rodgers falls through, is he the Jets' backup plan? Because they were already kind of planning on paying Rodgers $50 million a year anyway. So if it's not going to be Rodgers, they can almost justify it where like, okay, Lamar is going to cost about the same amount. We'll get more years out of him. He's younger. He still sells tickets like Rodgers was gonna. He still makes us a contender. And, let's see what we got there. He could be their backup plan. But besides that, I agree with you. Like, where else is really shelling that out? I mean, I know the Falcons have been one of the rumored teams that Lamar may be interested in. They may be interested in him. But then there's also that report that came out that said they will not be pursuing Lamar Jackson. So many variables here. And your guess is as good as mine to what's really going on here.
Indy and the Commanders are really the two big teams that I see really in the market for a quarterback.
Commanders is a good call. That would make sense.
I think Atlanta is trying to work with Ritter, see if they can keep him, see if they got to go somewhere else or whatever. And that's why they bring Heineke in. Yeah, Washington, but as we said last week, who wants to go to Washington? Is that really a place you want to go? Lamar making sense. I mean, it's close. It's in the same area. It's not a big move for him. He's got a fan base already. There are definitely pieces to work with McLaurin. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money that the Commanders
are going to put up. One team that may just say we'll give him whatever he wants. Like if anybody would just say, look, like whatever you want, we'll give it to you. It's probably Washington, especially with the tricky Dan Snyder situation. Is he going to have to sell the team? What's going on with all that? Snyder might just say, screw it. I'm going to have to sell the team anyway. This might be my last year as the owner. Hey, Lamar, what do you want? I'll give it to you. And then when I sell the team, they got to deal with it. Who cares? Now, that's if Lamar would even want to go there, which, we don't know if he wants to go to that unstable situation either. But if there's anyone who's just going to open the checkbook and say F it, it's probably the Commanders.
Makes sense. Maybe we see Lamar in a Commander's uniform.
And Dan Snyder can give one last middle finger to the entire league like he always does. And, it kind of seems like, maybe, the owners don't want to, give in because apparently a lot of the owners are upset about what the Browns did with Deshaun Watson. And this would be, repeating itself. Knowing Dan Snyder, he'd say, oh, you guys all hate this idea? Well, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it double.
100% can see that happening, exactly like that, as a matter of fact.
But if I'm Lamar, I ain't going to Washington.
No, I'm not either. The Jets are counting on Aaron Rodgers coming. They are already trying to fulfill his grocery list of demands for wide receiver. And you're right, this deal isn't done. Rodgers admits himself that the only thing holding it up is Green Bay getting what they want, and the Jets have not offered that yet. I find it kind of interesting that the Jets are trying to fulfill this grocery list for Aaron Rodgers without actually knowing that he's coming. And you have to wonder if there is a backup plan. And we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Maybe it is close enough that the Jets know they're going to get the deal done, and so they're willing to make these moves. It's just interesting. It's one of the more interesting situations, I think, that I've seen in a long time, because you've got the Jets making moves and doing things to appease and attract a player who doesn't personally have any control of going there, and they're doing it before the deal is actually made.
I mean, he has control of not going there because of his no trade clause. He can say no to anywhere, but he can't really say yes to anywhere. That's up to the Packers.
He's already said he wants to go. He already said he wants to go. He already said he intends on playing there, but he's not there. The Packers have to give him up.
Who knows? What he says, who knows? We went through all this garbage with Rodgers last offseason too, and that he might want to be traded, and he's saying he's considering retirement, and, Green Bay doesn't treat him right, and the front office doesn't give him help, and he said all this last year. And then they signed him to this nice, shiny, new, big contract extension, and all of a sudden he's happy again? Who knows what the hell Rodgers is thinking?
Well, I agree with what you said last time. I think the Packers are ready to get rid of him. Aaron Rodgers said so himself, that it seems the organization wants to move in another direction. That's the feeling that he
forcing
gets.
Their hand. Don't play
100%.
victim that they don't want me anymore. Well, look what you've done to them over the last several off seasons in a row now. They're sick of being in limbo, and they should be.
This is Aaron Rodgers, so this is what you're going to get. You're going to get this diva. Look at me. I'm a poor guy over here with one of the highest contracts in the NFL. Everybody feel bad for me. That's what he wants. The thing that I find different right now is the fact that he decided he was willing to play with the Jets last Friday. Been going through this whole circus of Rodgers making a decision on what he's going to do next, even though it's not really his decision. He has some say in what he personally does. And through the process that he's gone through, he has decided he wants to play for the Jets, that he's good playing for the Jets. Hey, Jets, get me these guys because I'm coming to play for you. The Jets believe it because they're actually trying to do it. And Green Bay has admitted they're willing to get rid of him. Green Bay says they're tired of it, and yet the deal still isn't made. And so that's the red flag, right?
Yeah, of course. And, with his whole demands and, trying to get all his guys there, this is weird for NFL. You don't see that too often, especially in the order that it's being done. It feels more like an NBA type of trade than an NFL trade, which is very strange. Now, look, when Brady joined the Bucs, sure, he brought some of his guys with him too. But that was after they signed him. They signed him first, and then he went and got Antonio Brown and Leonard Fournette and a couple other guys that he requested the organization to get, Rob Gronkowski, of course. And that's all fine, every quarterback does that to a sense when they change teams, just like, head coaches do it as well. When a head coach signs with a new team, they usually go back and get some of their former players. Now, that's all fine and good, but as you pointed to, this is all happening, and Rodgers is still a Packer. And the Jets hired Nathaniel Hackett for Rodgers, signed Alan Lazard for Rodgers. What is going on here,
So if the Jets are doing all this thing, why isn't the deal already made? Because the Jets clearly think that this deal is going down.
Wouldn't it be so Aaron Rodgers, though, for the Jets to do all of this and then him change his mind and say, you know what, I don't think I want to go to the Jets anymore?
100%. And that's what everybody's kind of waiting to see if that's going to happen. I'm glad you brought that up because I believe that's exactly why everybody is tied up in this story. I think people are tired of hearing about Aaron Rodgers as well. I think people are tired of the grocery list, all this diva stuff, but that is the intrigue. That's the mystery. Is he actually going to do it? Or is Green Bay actually going to do it? Are the Jets getting sucked in to something that they're not going to be able to get out of? That is the intriguing part to me, is to see what is actually going to happen. It's interesting, way over publicized, but I mean, it's a soap opera. I mean, we got WWE. I love the NBA analogy because this is very LeBron-esque and NBA-like. Today's landscape, everybody, I want to play with this guy, go get me that guy. The unique situation here, the part that's blowing my mind, as we both said, is that it's happening before the deal is even made. It's just crazy. I don't remember seeing anything like it.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen anything like this before. It's wild.
Very. Who are we looking at that isn't signed? I mean, there's still some big names out there. I mean, besides Lamar, I know people are kind of waiting to see what this guy's going to do. Orlando Brown was a big one, but he signed yesterday with the Bengals. He is off the table, but we've still got guys like Dalton Schultz. You're a Dallas fan. We don't know what's going to happen with him yet. I still think he's going to stay in Dallas.
I hope so. Dak loves him, so I hope so.
Gardner Johnson is still out there. Bobby Wagner is still out there. Beckham is still out there. Beckham is still expected to sign with somebody. He's not the OBJ that we know, but I definitely think he could still fill the same role he did with the Rams.
Well, he was apparently on Rodgers' wish list too, right? OBJ was another name that was apparently on that wish list, so maybe he'll end up with the Jets. The rumors, have been a lot of Giants and a lot of Cowboys over the last year or so with Odell. Him returning to, the Giants or joining the Cowboys. I think all three of those options are on the table. Now, I'm not sure what to make of the rumor. I think it was Mike Florio who said that Odell's looking for $20 million a year. If that's true, ain't nobody signing Odell Beckham Jr. at $20 million a year. Who knows if that's true? Right. Yeah, well, maybe.
They might have painted themselves on the corner. They may have to do it.
The Cowboys ain't doing it, and the Giants ain't doing it. You're right, though. If anybody was, it would probably be the Jets. And, Odell could kind of leverage that, I guess, too, with the Jets. Like, look, if you guys want Rodgers, he already said he's not coming here unless you sign me, so here's my price.
A great way to look at it, taking the other side of it. You do that all the time. You're fantastic at it. That's why we love having you on the show. We appreciate you stopping in, talking free agency with us. NFC South this week. It means we're supposed to go to the AFC South next week. I'm not going to commit yet because with all the moves, let's just wait and see where we're going to go. I will say we're likely going to go with an AFC division.
Yeah, we'll see where the news takes us, where the free agency takes us. If there's any trades that happen this week, any big signings, we'll let that kind of dictate what division we go to next. But NFC South was definitely a good one for this week. I mean, the Saints and Panthers alone did enough work to definitely warrant them one of the most active divisions right now.
Making good moves, making moves that matter, just like we are. He made moves to have Adam Hulse come join us every week and talk about the free agency picture. Adam, we appreciate you stopping in today and talking free agency with us. We look forward to talking with you next week.
I mean, this series has been a blast. I look forward to it again next week, and we'll see where the news takes us.
Head over to Twitter and type in Adam Hulse Sports. See all the places you can find him. One of the big places you can find him is over at sportskita.com. Professional NFL writer, super knowledgeable, great guy that loves to talk the sport. We love having him on. And you can find us over on Twitter at That EFIN Show, EFIN Show. We got videos, we got podcasts, talking to D1 coaches during March Madness. It's all good stuff. It's all for you. It's all sports all the time at That EFIN Sports Show. Everybody have a great week. Be safe. Thanks again, Adam.
Thanks again for having me. Come back next week.
To the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost. I'ma stay loud, stay proud, never running out, never heading south. I'll be spreading out, call it word of mouth, can't put me down. I'll be getting loud, you can have your doubts, not what I'm about. Have your cloud, it be raining now, I keep making sound, go another round, I'm legend bound, can't stop me now.